I hope I'm not sending the wrong message here, because I know in previous videos I've expressed a lot of my doubts about Tesla's ability to reach level 5 autonomy. I don't think anyone else is closer, for the record. I think by a long shot, Tesla has the most autonomous miles driven. They've set up this genius system where instead of having to pay a handful of software developers to test out their software, they can now instead get paid by consumers who will gladly beta test the software themselves. And I'm not trying to say that in a negative sense. I genuinely think that's a smart business model, considering there's plenty of people out there that would gladly beta test this software, including myself. So I think they've developed a genius system to make the best autonomous driving systems in the world, while at the same time, I still have a hard time understanding how RoboTaxis are around the corner, and I think we're going to be chasing that whole 0.99% of successful situations for many, many years to come. I think it could easily be 10 years plus, and I know this is a difficult subject to talk about because there's many of you out there that are like, RoboTaxis are basically done. It's just one software switch and they'll be ready next year. And there's others of you out there that are probably saying, nope, it'll probably not even be possible in 40, 50, 60 years. So we have a very wide range of opinions to choose from. The best I can do is just tell you mine, why I came to that conclusion, and hopefully we can all respect each other at the end of the day. But I hope my emphasis here can be on, I'm not doubting the hardware and the software and the infrastructure that Tesla has built to achieve level 5 autonomy. I'm more doubting external factors that I think are going to make that near impossible. And of course, the main issue with achieving level 5, I think, is going to be making it legally acceptable to where federal governments go, yeah, you know what, you can start building vehicles that don't have steering wheels. Your software is reliable enough. You don't need to have a human behind the wheel of a Tesla anymore. And I think it's kind of fair for governments to be cautious about this and be very, very slow with the gradual rollout, because as fun as full self-driving is and robo-taxis are, it's easy to forget the fact that these are thousands and thousands of pounds rolling around on the road going 60, 70, 90 miles an hour in certain places, and making sure that that behaves very, very safely and that it's going to not cause accidents, not cause accidental deaths, even if it's a tiny, insignificant percentage. Ensuring that that doesn't happen is very, very important. And in videos prior, I got a lot of comments saying that, well, all that full self-driving needs, or all robo-taxis need, is to be a bit better than the average human driver. And humans aren't that great at driving either. Don't get me wrong. I see all those Twitter videos of human pilot compilations of just idiots on the road, turning and crashing into people or not paying attention, texting and driving. I totally get that. Humans are not great at driving, and probably even right now, the full self-driving beta we're seeing videos of, it drives a lot better than a lot of people I see on the street every day. But there's a huge fundamental difference here between the average bad driver versus robotaxi, is that when there's an average bad driver, we have law enforcement or highway patrol, of course, that can pull over someone for being dangerous. Police show up when there's accidents, and if someone is being irresponsible and they're not driving safely, we can take away that person's license, or we can penalize them, or if they have repeat offenses, we can take away their license and not give it back and just say, okay, you can't handle the road, you know, driving is a privilege, not a right, so you can't really drive anymore. Whereas we can't do that same punishment style with robo-taxis, even if they are a really, really great driver. If one instance happens, it doesn't have to be often, just one instance in which it turned a little too early, ended up hitting a pedestrian or causing an accident, and there's no one in the car, for one, the media is going to have a field day with that, and we're never going to hear the end of it. And on top of it, if they find something off in the software that in one rare city with one weird turn is not behaving properly, then in that case, we can't just turn off robotaxi for one car, right? Because if the government finds out that, hey, there's an issue with the software where full self-driving is vulnerable in these conditions and not doing great in this type of environment, then they can't just say, okay, then that one Tesla can't drive anymore, because this software is not just driving one vehicle, similar to how a drunk driver is operating one vehicle. We can take away their license, take away their privileges. Robotaxi is the software that's going to be driving and powering potentially millions of vehicles in the future. So if millions of vehicles are all driving on the road by themselves and there starts to become a software issue, it'd be very likely that the government would force Tesla to shut them down everywhere. Otherwise, Tesla couldn't keep operating, because there's going to be doubts in the media and the government's going to say, if there's vulnerabilities in this one situation, how do we know there's not more vulnerabilities elsewhere? And in the meantime, we're just going to not allow cars to drive themselves because there's a chance someone could get hurt by this. And liability, I think, is a huge issue that's going to take years of legal writing to figure out. Once a Tesla is completely full self-driving and Tesla starts assuming responsibility for them, if something goes wrong, and again, it doesn't have to happen often, I'm sure that in the majority of situations, a Tesla driving on the road is most likely going to be way safer than the average human. And overall, I think the more Teslas on the road, the safer our roads are going to be. But still, even if one RoboTaxi makes a wrong turn and ends up hitting somebody, or heaven forbid, ends up killing somebody, there is going to be lawsuits for days. You can imagine how much crap Tesla gets already for autopilot. Imagine what happens if headlines are able to say RoboTaxi ends up killing someone or causing an accident or putting someone in the hospital. You know, that's going to be a huge liability risk for Tesla, and the potential billions of dollars they could lose over lawsuits from that type of situation unfolding should definitely make Tesla think twice about enabling that level 5 autonomy. And the external factors I'm also thinking about are all kinds of things that humans can do pretty easily that a machine with RoboTaxi could not do as easily. So a classic example that comes to my mind is what happens when there's a flat tire. Either the car is driving somebody else around, or maybe it's meeting to pick someone else and no one is in the vehicle. What happens if it hits a pothole, hits a nail in the road, and suddenly it's no longer capable of driving very fast because the tire's flat? So who changes the tire? Does it alert the owner that there's a flat tire and they have to take care of it? Or does it automatically call a repair shop? Can it automatically call a tow truck? Well, just the simple process of getting a computer to make and schedule phone calls at different businesses is, you know, it's in its early phase right now. Google's messing around with it, but they're also facing a lot of legal backlash with trying to make that a thing that any phone can do. And Teslas, I don't believe, even make phone calls right now. So there's a whole bunch of legal trouble you'd have to go through, or I've seen some people suggest, well, maybe they have to put up repair stations near RoboTaxis, or maybe you have service centers that get alerted of a RoboTaxi with a flat tire, so they have to go out and find it and tow it back and replace the tire and then put it back out there. Who assumes responsibility there? If it's the owner, then that means they probably have to be very close by to the RoboTaxi, and then how passive is it if they have to end up babysitting their entire RoboTaxi fleet? That means they can't really leave the city or leave the state if they have a bunch of RoboTaxis driving around. And if it's Tesla's responsibility, that means that RoboTaxis are going to be fairly geo-limited because they're going to have to cut off RoboTaxi access if it's in a place where there's not enough service centers to make sure that the Teslas are okay. And I've even seen videos currently of autopilot failing or unable to operate because they're in a bad weather storm and there's a lot of snow, and snow starts covering up and limiting visibility of the sensors and the radar. And I know some of the more recent generation Teslas have radar heaters, but even then, that means you'd have to have a certain type of Tesla from a certain manufacturing year to actually enable RoboTaxi access. And I don't think people who paid for full self-driving and were promised they would be able to turn their car into a RoboTaxi in a few years would be very happy finding out that, well, your car doesn't have a radar heater, so we can't make it legal for you. But yeah, autopilot is already running into issues with its environment, whether it be heavy rain, which makes it hard for the cameras to see, and even with hydrophobic coating being put over the cameras, there are still situations where there's lots of debris and leaves, and if wet and sticky leaves start falling over the car and start covering up the camera sensors, you know, it's fairly simple for a human to pull over and clean off the windshield, whereas a car with its windshield wipers can only do so much. And of course, an example I brought up in prior videos, because I interact with a lot of trolls online, I'm sure that once there are vehicles on the road with nobody in them driving around, there's going to be vandalism, and there's going to be people and teenagers that think it's funny that if they see a car with no one in it, they should run up to it and slap some tape on it or spray paint over the cameras. And if that happens, what now? That car's basically stuck wherever it is and it can't really move around. You have to either contact the owner, contact the service center, who's going to pay to tow it away, and how are they going to fix it? Where do they leave it off if the owner of the RoboTaxi is out of state? There's all kinds of messy situations here where I could see RoboTaxis being a very confusing and liability mess. And for all of these different circumstances, I can see why the government is going to be very hesitant to just legalize it and say, you know what? Yeah, it seems safe enough. Go ahead, turn on RoboTaxis. Good luck. And again, I'm not trying to emphasize here that RoboTaxis are impossible or that they're not going to happen. I just am thinking a lot with the logical and practical side of my brain and just thinking, how many legal changes is Tesla going to have to make to their vehicles to make RoboTaxis a reality? And I think it could easily be 10 years plus away. And there's definitely a lot of places in busy cities like New York City where trying to get a vehicle to behave on those crazy streets and understand how to interact between all the crazy drivers cutting each other off. And there's a lot of situations where I could even see the best neural net that, and the best full self-driving computers struggle to keep up and be contextually aware of what's going on. I don't doubt it'll get better. I don't doubt it will improve with time. And like I said in previous videos, I don't think Tesla needs RoboTaxis to survive. I still think the products are amazing, and level 4 autonomy is mainly what I'm interested in. I don't have much desire to buy an expensive car and then have it drive around and pick up strangers and deliver them to places. That's not really what I care about. I'm more of a fan of the idea of getting in my car and it can drive itself wherever I want it to go, and along the way I can sleep, watch Netflix, watch YouTube. And I think that future is very, very close, especially based off the FSD betas we're seeing right now. I feel like we could see level 4 autonomous driving by the end of next year. And I think that feature alone will set Tesla aside from the competition and allow them to thrive. And they're still going to be a $1 trillion company, and I still believe they're going to be delivering 20 million vehicles by 2030. But this robotaxi thing, I have a hard time believing is just around the corner and they're just going to flip a switch next year. I think it's a lot further away than Tesla is making it out to be, and I really, truly, desperately wish Tesla could separate robotaxi access from full self-driving, because right now that seems to be how they justify the ever so increasing price, is that, well, it's $10,000, but it'll make you $30,000 a year. Yeah, I don't want my car driving around strangers. No, thank you. And I would pay for a feature that allows the car to drive itself, but I don't want my vehicle to be in the robotaxi network. I would pass on that. But maybe that robotaxi access is how they just keep increasing the price, and they probably know a lot of people wouldn't pay for robotaxi access if there was a cheaper option to just not have that. But we will always find out in time. It's very possible I'm wrong. I would love to be wrong on this subject and have robotaxis become a thing sooner than we think. But either way, I'm curious what you guys think about robotaxis. Do you think they're right around the corner? Do you think they're decades away? Feel free to let me know. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day.